Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as right now I've got a burning desire to get my hands on a hunk. But before that, let's take a look at the latest release from FansToys, shall we? FT-42 Hunk is the latest effort from popular third-party outfit FansToys, and sees them bringing to life the small but burly minibot known as Brawn. This release comes with the usual FansToys hype, so I'm anticipating a solid and sturdy design, perhaps peppered with a bit of die-cast and a fiddly transformation to boot. Let's see how we get on. Brawn is arguably one of the more distinctive characters from the first year of the Transformers franchise, first making his debut in the original cartoon's pilot episode. He features regularly throughout a lot of the earlier adventures, often strutting his strongman persona, although perhaps his most notorious moment comes in the 1986 big-screen animated movie. What a legacy. Though it's not the first attempt at a Masterpiece-styled interpretation of the character, it is the closest we've seen to his animation model, so we'll be doing plenty of comparisons with all of that today. Last thing before we begin, today's video comes courtesy of TF Source, so I'll put a link to their site in the video description. The plan for today is to give you my first impressions before getting a full photo review up on their blog soon. Right then, here is Hunk in his box, and it's classic FansToys fare, what can I say? Tiny little box, very nice artwork on the front, and product shots and bio on the back. Gosh, FT-42 already. I was just thinking the other day that I can't believe how many toys FansToys have put out now. I guess it's because, you know, I was doing a bit of a toy of the week video on Scoria, and I was thinking, man, that feels like just yesterday, but that was only their third toy. Anyway, here's today's fare, and looking good. In the box then you've got his hand blaster, a little drill accessory, a nice shiny drill accessory for the front of the vehicle mode, a very expressive looking shouty angry face, and of course the toy itself, which I will say right out the box seems to have a little loose bit just there on the toe, which is slightly annoying, but we'll figure that out. So it's a slim total package, but at least you get that little drill thing. That's actually probably more than you get with a lot of FansToys releases these days in terms of cartoon nods. Well, let's check out the toy itself, and first thing you'll notice is that it's got the old FansToys feel to it, and by that I mean, well, it's relatively heavy. I mean, it's a small little thing, obviously, relatively small being a minibot, but still it has that kind of die-cast heft going on, and it's got this sort of familiar shiny finish as well. And if you've never handled a FansToys figure before, which, you know, obviously a lot of third-party Masterpiece collectors have, it's got that kind of, it's got a very weird feel to the plastic. It's not brittle, but it feels very strong, but very distinct at the same time. And I would say that's a pretty good likeness for the character, actually, for the animation model. You know, more so than Badcube Brawny. We'll do a comparison coming up in a little bit. But yeah, I think as is typically true of FansToys releases, they've done a very good job at bringing him to life. Now, quite clearly, a large part of that on any toy is the face sculpt and the head sculpt in general, and yeah, I think, again, they've done a good job here. I think Brawn is one of those that looks very weird, depending on which shot of the cartoon you're going with. You know, you could screen cap different scenes from the animation, and indeed the 86 movie, and he would look very different, you know, facial expressions, all of that. But as a neutral sort of styled face goes, and the shape of the head, yeah, I think that looks pretty good, actually. He's got that kind of man-of-arms helmet going on. You know, I like the little creases on the face just there. I think that kind of adds to the character a little bit. You know, they've managed to make him look, you know, a decent approximation anyway of the animation model, but still kind of quite, I don't want to say handsome, but rugged, I guess. I don't know. You choose your own adjectives, but yeah, I think it looks good. And coming down a bit further, we've got the chest section, of course, which is looking nicely smooth just here, ripe for an Autobot logo. So clearly that's the intended placement, and I'll definitely be doing that another day. And I really like the colour that they've used on the body of the figure there, the yellow, kind of mustardy yellow that's going on. I know that, you know, Badcube Brawny came in for tons of flack with the colour that they chose, and I think they actually did a second run of that toy with a slightly sort of more yellowy figure, less kind of orangey. Here, if anything, it's got a kind of, I don't know, cross between a kind of goldy, mustardy look, and it's got a nice sheen to it as well. You can see that all too familiar kind of little speckle in there from FansToys. That's very common in a lot of their finish, and I think it looks fabulous. All the little painted details down here and the molded details, these little kind of like, they look a bit like screws, and then this thing that looks a bit like a CD drive or something, that is all very on point to the animation model. Really like this kind of soft blue, kind of almost bluey grey that they've got for the forearms, and then, you know, just down here on the knees as well. I think that's got a really nice kind of, as I say, soft quality to it in hand, and it contrasts very nicely with the green and the kind of mustardy yellow, and it's a really good colour palette on this guy, really nice. Coming down a bit to the feet, and they are a weird one. I'm not going to lie, they're a weird one, but they're a weird one on Brawn's animation model as well. So in that respect, you know, I do feel like FansToys actually have captured them quite nicely. They've kind of got this weird kind of tapered look to them. The only real disadvantage of FansToys design here is that with this very obvious seam running down the middle of how it all comes together, it means that this bit here, particularly with the line across, very much looks like toes, doesn't it? I mean, that can't just be me that looks at that and thinks toes. And in fact, it being green as well, kind of all adds up to this guy looking a bit like a Ninja Turtle. Frankly, he's got two toes, green, just the shape of it, everything. That's Ninja Turtle territory as far as I'm concerned. Still, they definitely don't look bad, and I'll be more pleased if I can get that one sort of toe to peg in properly that I've already shown you. And just here is on the back, of course, you've got a lot of wheels folded away. That's actually quite a neat job, I would say, at kind of you know, reconciling the again, the animation model without too much going into the backpack. Speaking of backpacks, there it is, and I don't think that's too bad actually. Yes, fairly bulky, but again, it's kind of what you would expect from Brawn, I think. That's, you know, it's got to go somewhere, right? All of this stuff, the roof, the main body of the vehicle mode, and honestly, I don't think it's too bad. He doesn't feel particularly back heavy either, which is really good because you know, with that much bulk in the back, you could think that he might topple over, but because of the massive feet, he seems absolutely fine. And then of course you got the old spare tire and stuff just on there. We'll check that out more in vehicle mode. Now, one thing I'm really not keen on from the backpack is these rather obvious wing mirrors sticking out the side. Very, very obvious, and it detracts from the look. You know, in my mind anyway, it's the only thing I can really see right now. As soon as I look at this guy, it's like, oh, wing mirrors. And I don't know, they feel strong enough. They're obviously metal die-cast, which is an excellent choice from FansToys. And hey, let's get some die-cast in there, said FansToys, and they did. And yeah, no, so that is, there's no worries about them breaking, although they do look thin and fragile. It's just from a visual perspective, it's hard to not look at them and think it, you know, looks like sticky out ears or something. I don't know, it would have just been nice if they'd folded away somehow or something, you know, but as it is, just looks a bit odd. That said, I do think that they've done a very nice job with him on the whole, and if we bring in the old animation model to do a straight up comparison, hopefully you can tell which one is which, then you know, you can see that actually most of the major details are on point. I feel like the shape of the chest is really good. I really like, as I said earlier, this kind of detailing and everything down there. I think that's good. The knees look pretty good to me. The shape of the feet on the whole, you know, other than the fact that it looks like he has visible turtle toes, you know, I think actually that's a very good take on what that's meant to look like. Where I do think there's a little bit of deviation actually is in this bit just behind his head, and everything that's going on just kind of behind there with the backpack. That's, you know, a little bit different, but God, let's you know, give him a bit of credit, because realistically, I think it looks very much like it's supposed to. Now, in terms of articulation, there is, you know, articulation at the head is very difficult because of where the backpack sits. You know, it's so close to the head, and then the neck joint is extremely stiff. So, you know, it will actually turn quite a bit. More than I would have anticipated. I think actually, yeah, you can get it even a bit more. So you can really kind of go for it. It won't go directly to the side, as you can see, but it at least goes, I would say that's a good sort of 45-degree angle from the front. So, you know, that's quite nice in that regard. And then, yeah, it's just very stiff. And then it will go, I think, no, it will not go up or down. I was about to lie there for a second, but yeah, really stiff, this thing. And now you see, I tell a lie because you can tilt the head slightly just there. It's just very stiff, again, very stiff. But I mean, realistically, you don't get much out of it even then. As for his arms, well, you've got decent articulation at the shoulder, which will go all the way up to 90 degrees, and of course will go, you know, all the way around as well, just like that. That feels very, very stiff. You've got a bicep swivel, which will go all the way around, and then you've got a decent enough joint at the elbow, which will go to 90. You've got wrist swivel just there, and then in the sort of traditional FansToys style, the whole, the hand, all of the fingers are molded onto one piece. No articulation at the thumb. Coming further down, there is No waist swivel. No waist swivel at all. And then coming down to the legs, the hips are a weird one because you can get just almost to sort of, well, not quite 90 just there, but then of course he's got a hip flap which you need to get out the way. And what's really weird is that it's connected to the side flap just there. So actually the whole thing goes with it. That's really strange, really strange choice on their part, because then, I mean, all right, yeah, that gives you more. Then you get to the full 90, maybe just even a smidge over at the hip, which is good, but that is just it's kind of an ugly solution. I don't think that's, I'm guessing it's necessary for transformation, but man, what a choice. Not sure about that. As far as the rest of the legs go, you've got, you know, quite a decent bend at the knees that goes a little bit beyond 90. You do get this kind of, again, this very obvious visual break at the knee when that's bent. I mean, there's a little bit of detail filled in there rather than it just being, you know, a straight hole. So that's nice, but still. And then there is indeed a bit of ankle tilt as well. Not much, but enough. So yeah, he's not the most articulated bot. He feels fairly static actually, just on account of a couple of things. I mean, the joints are all really stiff, no concerns on that score. My main kind of, you know, annoyances, I suppose, grumbles, is just this hip flap. I think that is just a very bizarre solution, honestly. You know, if you want the knees to bend all the way forward, you're going to have to raise that hip flap, and then there's nowhere, once you do that, for the side flap. That's as far in as that goes then, with it raised all the way forward and with the knee in that position. So yeah, it's kind of obvious, to be honest. It's not a great look. But yeah, the knees that actually don't bother me, with the little gap just there. I have seen a couple of grumbles about that online, so, you know, if that bothers you, that is what it is. The no waist swivel is a bit of a bummer. And this is something that actually we've seen on a couple of FansToys figures of late. I mean, stuff like their aerial bots, you know, with Iceman, that has no waist swivel either. I'm sure there are more. Phoenix has no waist swivel. And, you know, some designs, I think, you know, you can get away with it, and it's kind of understandable. On this guy, I don't know, just looking at it, maybe it's difficult because of the engineering, but I feel like they need to prioritize stuff like that realistically. People do expect a bit of a waist swivel. It's become a standard joint nowadays, a standard point of articulation, and I think to not have it and to not work it into the design somehow, I don't know, I feel like just going, oh well, it can't be done. I think people expect it these days. And actually, I know I said that I thought the ankle tilt was okay, but I'm kind of going back on that a little bit. You really don't get a lot out of it. So yeah, even sort of fanning his legs out to the side, you know, if you want to pose him in a way that avoids having to use those hip flaps, there's not a lot of give in the ankle tilt either. So, and again, I feel like along with the waist swivel thing, that's something that FansToys are fairly inconsistent with, actually. I mean, stuff like their Hydra, their 6-shot, you know, and a couple of others have got sort of fairly limited ankle tilt, and it makes a bit of a difference. So in many ways, yeah, this plays very typically to FansToys form in that, you know, it's a fairly, or certainly not the most impressively articulated toy I've ever seen, but it does feel very nicely well built. You know, it feels very sturdy and whatever else. It's got the old sheen going on. You know, if you're a FansToys collector, you probably know what you're in for at this stage. Now, before we look at accessories, one thing I do want to address is this toe, for want of a better word, because that is really bugging me. So it's kind of, you can see just there, it pegs in quite clearly, but when I press it, it will stay. And actually I've managed to, I mean, I've been forcing it quite a bit, I'm not gonna lie, you know, so I think I've kind of got it to almost go now, but it's not the most solid, certainly. It will kind of, you know, pop out fairly easily, and I just pushed it there. But so initially I couldn't get it at all. Like I was kind of, you know, kept putting it back in and it was just flopping straight out. So at least now I've got it to kind of stay, and I guess I'm happy enough with that. But out the box, yeah, it's not a great look. I think ultimately this little peg just there is probably too large for the hole, and I'm sure someone will tell me, hey, just sand it down. I really hate doing that, man. I really, and particularly something that small, I really just don't like that. I might give it a go, I don't know if it continues to be a problem, but it doesn't have that sort of really like tight fit or anything like that. Even kind of pressing it in a little bit and it is starting to go, maybe it's just kind of wearing down a little bit, it still feels like it's kind of a bit squidgy. Anyway, let's talk about his accessories, and first up is this gun, which looks really nice with its kind of silver sparkle to it. That's really nice. But the most remarkable thing about it is actually the method to get it into his palm, because it's not peg in palm, which is, you know, very common for most FansToys products, and indeed, you know, Masterpiece often in general. And but here actually it's a slider mechanism, which is a bit more reminiscent of a lot of fans hobby stuff. So hopefully you can see there's a corresponding little slot just there in the palm. So actually you can just go ahead and close the fingers slightly like that to make way for the gun, even a little bit more actually, and just slot it in like so, and jobs are good and feels very secure. And there we go, and I really like that as a solution because not only is it very simple and very easy to execute, but it's much more effective than peg in palm as well. I mean, a lot of peg in palm examples that I can think of that are just useless, you know, stuff like Masterpiece Red Alert is just the worst, you know, guns always falling out of palms and things like that, whereas this is not going anywhere. And as I said, I really like it on Fans Hobby that they use it, and it's good to see FansToys maybe adopting that as well. Maybe it's something we'll see in more toys, or maybe it's just because this guy's relatively small, who knows. Now of course the other accessory or gimmick that's going on here is the face swap. Now I've really tried to get it out with just my finger, but it is seemingly impossible, so I actually just used a small pair of tweezers just to get it you know, to get it out. So you might need a little tool or something. It's so tiny, and then you can just go ahead and plug the new face in. There you go. He angry. And I do think that looks really good, actually. I think it's very expressive, really nice, you know, shouty faces go. That's a really nice, expressive, very well-defined look, but still feels like the character, very in keeping with you know, his sort of shouty persona at times, and he's got that kind of rage going on, and I don't know, yeah, hunk smash, I guess. It also feels relatively secure in there. I gave it a good old shake because I wasn't too sure that it was going to stay, just purely on account of it just being a couple of little pegs that are holding it in, but actually it feels fine. Robot mode in general then, yeah, it's decent. It's really decent. It's got a couple of flaws, a couple of things that I'm like, about, you know, those wing mirrors kill it for me. That's just, you know, it's far too obvious. It is a nitpick and it's not, you know, because it's just permanently there, and it's still, now I look at it and it just looks goofy to me, like really silly. You know, again, I'm kind of a bit bummed about that little bit with the feet. It's not a big thing, but I don't know, it's just always a bit disappointing. It can, you know, when stuff is kind of flopping around or whatever, it kind of takes the sheen off a new product somehow. But the overall look of him, I think, is really, really impressive. Definitely looks like the character. And other than that bit, it feels very solid and well built. Not the most articulated, you know, and generally, I feel like the articulation is a bit of maybe a bit of a bummer on this guy. So he's not, you know, he's not going to be the most poseable, but he does look nice on the shelf. Let's move on and do a few comparisons then, and I feel like we're really going to go for it today. You know, if you've seen my video reviews before, you may know that I love doing comparisons. It's one of my favorite bits, so we're gonna go for it. And here he is with two versions of the same character. This is of course Bumblebee. You've got Masterpiece MP-21 just here and MP-45 just there, and some people love one or the other or both or neither or whatever, but there you go. I just thought you might be interested to see him with both of those guys. I think he shapes up pretty well. I guess it's interesting because initially FansToys were very much hitting the same style as this guy, and then if anything, along with, you know, a couple of other third parties like Make Toys maybe, they've kind of evolved their design a little bit to hit the more animation accurate look which MP-45 kind of represents, but it's still not as slavish to the animation in the same sort of uber styled sort of take as this guy. So maybe it's sort of somewhere in between the two, but there you go. You can see how it works with both of those. Now we'll keep in the theme of minibots, 84 minibots at the moment, and here of course you've got X-Transbot's efforts for Cliff Jumper. That's their Toro and Windcharger, which is their boost. This is the original boost, the one with the white thighs. They've done a couple of other versions since, but there you go. You can see how they shape up together, and actually I do think that FansToys effort kind of really hits that cartoon accurate look. Again, I love X-Transbot stuff. These two for me are slightly compromised in different ways, but yeah, maybe FansToys will do those two characters as well, who knows. Next up, here he is with a couple of Badcube products. This is Badcube Huff, their Huffer, and Badcube Grump, their Gears. And you know, these three characters, I always kind of associate them as kind of like a triumvirate of grumpy old men, little grumpy old men. I don't know why, they just always kind of, in my mind anyway, ever since the beginning, always kind of mesh together. I can just imagine them sort of off in the corner, just, you know, chatting quietly and grumbling about whatever Optimus has done now and whatever else. But yeah, they look quite good together, actually. I think the obviously Badcube have done a Brawn as well. We'll check that out in just a minute and do a comparison between the two. But if these are your options for those two characters, then it works well to my eye. Of course, FansToys do also have a Huffer on the way. We've already seen some preview images of that, some renderings and what have you. And you know what? It wouldn't surprise me at all if they're going to do Gears. Let's be fair, it's going to happen, isn't it? Moving on to 85 minibots. Here we've got two from X-Transbots again. Now these two, I love these guys. This is X-Transbot's Sea Spray and X-Transbot's Cosmos, and really nice toys, both of them, and I think that looks pretty good. And you can check him out there with DX9's Power Glide. DX9 no more, that's a shame, right? Like, yeah, this is one of my favorite DX9 toys, and of course they've just announced, if you've not seen it, that they're going to stop after their Stunticons that they're doing, or just finishing. So yeah, that's a bit of a shame, but there you go. You can see how these two toys look together there. And then with a couple of other FansToys products, of course, you've got their Beachcomber and Warpath. That is June Rider or June Runner, and Sheridan, and both of which I've reviewed on the channel, so check those out. And yeah, as expected, I think that works well. And then let's do them with a few Carbots. Here, of course, you've got a couple of the Hasui era Carbots with in plus style anyway. This is Wheeljack and Prowl, and there you can see the scale of Hunk, you know, next to them. He is of course a wee little fella, but not so wee actually. Like, he still kind of comes up to about Carbot shoulder height, and I think for my money that works very nicely. Of course, it's a similar story with old Sunstreaker and Sideswipe just here, both Masterpiece versions, and yeah, again, I think they look really good. The only real difference that's so funny to see is stylistically how different Sunstreaker and Sideswipe are from one another, from very different eras of the Masterpiece line, and again, you know, realistically Hunk is different in his own way as well, but it works, somehow it works. And here's a couple of third-party 84 Carbots. You've got Make Toys Downbeat. This is the original version. I do have the new premium edition that they've just released for review as well, so that'll be up soon. And then you've got a Oculamax Sphinx, the alternate version that they did. That's just there as well. And of course it's interesting because again, FansToys have already teased both these characters, Jazz and Mirage, so they are on the way at some point, maybe in 2026, who knows, but they'll get to it eventually, I'm sure. And yeah, of course there is also the Transform Element Mirage that's out now as well. Now, I've already compared him with both these molds already, but here's Masterpiece Smokescreen and Red Alert, and that looks good to me. And then, because I'm feeling generous and everyone always forgets about this character, here is X-Transbot's Skids, which is a funny old toy, but I really like it, and nice to see the character represented finally. And yeah, there you go. And obviously Skids kind of counts as both technically an 84 and 85 character in many ways. It's a weird old story, that one. And let's bring in some of the bigger dudes. Here is Masterpiece Ironhide and Ratchet, and that looks really good actually. Really like how that works. Similar story with Grapple and Inferno, both Masterpiece characters. Love these two toys, love them so much, and they look great. And here's Kev C's Transistor, their blaster, and actually another FansToys product. This is Tesla, their Perceptor, although they have another Tesla 2.0 on the way, which is good because this figure is very flawed in many ways, but there you go, you can see how those characters all look together. Here he is with the current crop anyway of the FansToys Aerial Bots, which I love these guys so far. They're shaping up to be a really nice crew. Hope we get to see the remaining two soon anyway, but there you go. Then, you know, just because it's nearly Christmas and I'm feeling generous, I'll throw in a couple of the FansToys Dinobots as well. Love these guys. And there you go. He looks absolutely tiny in comparison to them, but that's pretty much what you would expect, no? Then of course you can see him here with an Optimus Prime. This is actually third party. It's Transform Element Op Leader, which is I've just reviewed as well actually, so that's on the channel. Do check it out. And yeah, they look really, really nice together. This is a very good looking toy, Op Leader. And then just a couple of Decepticons just to whet your appetite. So here is Masterpiece Megatron and Soundwave. And yeah, of course, old Brawn had better watch out around these guys. Really though, I'm sure the comparison everyone wants to see is with Badcube Brawny. And it's hard to not look at this and think right away that FansToys have crushed it in terms of this comparison anyway. I actually do like Brawny a lot. It's a fun toy. It's you know, I quite like transforming it. I have enjoyed taking pictures of it, but I feel like Hunk definitely hits the animation model a little harder. And just, you know, looks a bit more streamlined, looks, you know, better proportions. You know, this guy, I actually do kind of like the kind of bulky thing that he's got going on, but, you know, clearly stuff like the kibble on the sides of the legs is a bit of a turn off. And it's one of those actually where it's looked fine. You know, I've never looked at it and thought, ugh, you know, what's that about? But actually, it's when you see it in comparison to a newer take on the character, sometimes these things are kind of put into perspective a little bit, aren't they? And this is definitely one of those times. Very different finish on these two as well. This is much more kind of bare plastic feel to it, whereas this has got this nice sheen and a little bit of a kind of more saturated orange look to it as well, which I think is really beneficial. I do prefer the green actually on Hunk as well. This is a much darker overall green, and I think the color scheme definitely on Hunk is better for sure, and I do prefer the head sculpt on this guy as well to this. So, you know, for me, I like the Badcube product, and I think there will be an element that it might be more fun to kind of transform. I don't know, we'll have to see when we transform Hunk. in a minute, and I'll give you my thoughts then. But certainly, just on terms of robot mode alone, it's hard to not look at this and think that FansToys have definitely put in a good showing. There you go. You can see actually backpacks very similar in many ways. You know, I feel like the size of this piece behind Brawn's head, and actually the way that you can articulate the head on Brawny, that is a little bit better. But you know, just in terms of again articulation, looks, but overall, yeah, it's definitely going to be Hunk for me, this one, I got to say. I feel like I should clarify at this point that I'm definitely not part of the FT wins again crowd. You know, I love FansToys stuff. I have lots of it. I really like it. I don't think that they're always the best at every character. You know, there've been numerous examples, Insecticons being one actually, where I think Badcubes are better than FansToys. You know, the Insecticons. You know, Reflector, I think Make Toys is better than FansToys. But in this case, it's a fairly clear winner for me, I think, just in terms of looks. I mean, again, if we bring that animation model back and have a look at all three, you know, the two toys and the animation model in comparison to one another, you can see that Hunk definitely, you know, comes much closer. It flies a lot closer to the animation model overall, and it doesn't have the kind of exaggerated proportions that Brawny does, and so consequently, it definitely does a better job at kind of aping the animation model. I do think that there's still some variance though. I don't think by any means it's spot on, as I already kind of indicated earlier. So, you know, maybe there's still room for someone else, Xtransbots or whoever, to kind of have another go at this character and really kind of smash it, really kind of nail that animation model look and feel. But certainly for today, it's very clear to me that FansToys they've won this round in that regard. So yeah, maybe he is living up to his name after all. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at transformation. Okay, here he is in vehicle mode, and not gonna lie, that transformation is actually quite good fun. I really enjoyed it, and I think some really clever bits in there that I just, you know, actually blew my mind a little bit, particularly the way these wheels split apart, these two wheel arches from the feet, because you know what, I just wouldn't have thought of it. I knew that the feet split apart, you could see that from the robot mode, and I knew that the wheels sat in the back of the feet. So I guess I had all of the pieces to kind of put it together, but just no part of my brain worked out that that was how it was going to happen, or, you know, whatever else. And I just think it's extraordinarily clever, really, really clever, because it's just not something I've ever seen, I don't think, not to such an extent anyway. And I like transformations that are somehow a bit unexpected. You know, they take these very familiar robot forms, very familiar car forms, and find a way to do it, which for me is kind of the, you know, like the masterpiece moment, as you will. I've heard that expression before, but I just think that is everything in terms of this style of collecting, and this toy has that. And to FansToys' credit, everything tabs in very nicely. It all feels quite solid as well. You know, it does have this sort of often, like FansToys products often have that slight, not sponginess to them, but that, you know, like I think I said this about their Beachcomber as well, you know, that slight give in the plastic, like compared to something like Transform Element Op Leader, which I just reviewed as well, you know, that snaps together, like, you know, very robustly, very securely, everything else. Whereas, I don't know, FansToys does have that slight squidge to it sometimes, and this toy definitely has that. Having said that, it does all tab together very nicely and feels cohesive. It's just got that kind of squeak as you go. Now, probably the biggest area of challenge is getting that roof assembly down over the car. That is a bit of a faff. That is a bit of a faff, definitely. And it took me, you know, a good sort of bit of wrangling and squidging and whatever to get it in place. But it's kind of, the real challenge actually is just getting it over these side parts. In the instructions, what does it say? It says, open sides of the waist. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Genuinely doesn't make any sense, because I presume reading that they meant robot waist. I think they just mean kind of the sides of this top section here, kind of pull it out slightly to get it over the shoulder assembly, which you can just see peeking out of the side of the window just there. But, you know, still, once you've got it and you know what to do, it's absolutely fine. There's just a couple of moments where you're like, how does this work? But actually, really, it's fine. It's not a difficult transformation, in my opinion. Definitely got a bit of the old lube going on, like this guy as well, though, the old FansToys lube. Again, you know, I could feel it kind of getting a bit greasy as I'm transforming the thing. It's so weird. As far as vehicle mode goes then, it's a pretty tidy affair. I really like it. It's very, what's to say, it's more real world than the animation model. It's not quite as stylized and that kind of chibi style that Brawn's animation model copies from the original toy, you know, the kind of squished proportions. This is more of a kind of real world, it's a Land Rover, isn't it? I think it's a Land Rover. But it looks really, really nice. And again, I think it cleans up very tidily, you know, from every angle. It looks really good. And it does roll really nicely as well on all four wheels. This to me it's an excellent fit and feel in terms of vehicle mode. This is how you want stuff to transform. Some really nice details going on too. I mean, I really like this translucent windshield. It does maybe reveal a little bit too much stuff inside the car. Some people really don't like that, but doesn't really bother me, to be honest. I think it looks all right. It's got these nice little kind of lamps at the top here as well. That all looks really good. Nice molded detail too. Of course, in this mode, the wing mirrors actually look really nice, so I am glad for them there. And I can kind of see why they don't fold away. I mean, I still would have liked them to have come up with something for that, but hey, they do kind of add something here. Of course, you've got this little kind of blue-grey painted section there from the knees. That's kind of unavoidable, I guess. It does stick out. It does detract slightly from the otherwise very clean alt mode, but it's not too bad. Very shiny looking spare tyre on top, which does spin as well. Got a decent approximation at a door there as well, which is good. I feel like this section here is maybe a little bit too high up. I mean, it actually versus the animation model, it looks okay, but of course they're kind of going for a slightly more real world take. And in that regard, the door looks a little bit short, perhaps, like it would come further down, but still, it looks okay. At the rear, you've got a little molded in gas canister just here, and actually you've got a more opaque window, sort of painted window just there, that's blue. So that does look a little bit odd versus the translucent ones at the front, but still. Of course, there is one part of this toy that's worth highlighting because it really makes me laugh, is this. Well, hello there! Joking aside, I can never not see a face on that. It's just pure, like, Thomas the Tank Engine style stuff. It's so funny because they did something very similar with their Beachcomber. Unintentionally, clearly, but I had to laugh at that as well. And lo and behold, again, look at that. It's just very funny. You know, I know it's silly. It makes me laugh. What can I say? Joking aside, it does look really nice. I mean, it's silly, but hey. And you do, of course, have that little kind of hook accessory there, little winch or whatever, which is for... Yay, this thing, there we go. You can plug the old drill on there, and that's very much you know, reminiscent of the cartoon. And it's actually from the episode The Ultimate Doom, where Brawn you know, has this drill come out from the front of his vehicle mode so that he can you know, drill through some rocks and whatever else. It's a really nice interpretation of it. It's very shiny, really like how that looks. It's the kind of accessory that is very simple, but it just works. Overall then, I'm really feeling this vehicle mode. It's you know, it's nice, it's well put together, it looks great, the colour's nice. It's a good job. In terms of comparisons then, here he is with MP44 Convoy, or Optimus Prime, if you prefer, whichever one. That's the official one. This is not Op Leader that we saw in robot mode earlier. And yeah, I think that works pretty well, actually. They look really, really nice together. I think this style, you know, again, it's a little bit different to the animation model, but I think it works well. Now, in fact, if we take a step back, we can do a straight up comparison with the animation model in vehicle mode as well, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about in terms of, you know, it being a little bit more real world style than the kind of chibi proportions of the cartoon look, because that went after the original toy, the G1 toy, which was a chibi toy, because The original toy, fun fact, was actually, when it was part of Microchange, intended to represent a toy car. It wasn't intended to represent an actual Jeep with real proportions. The original Microchange concept was that they were household items. The robots, they turned into household items, and the Minibots, Bumblebee, all of those guys, turned into toy cars, hence this kind of squished proportions even. And so it's kind of one of those weird things that is carried through Transformers. Then you get stuff like this, but I like what FansToys have done with it. I think it looks cool. Then here he is with a couple of car bots. So you've got Blue Streak and Hound just there, and of course the scale is just all over the shop, but that is what you get with Masterpiece toys, Masterpiece, even official toys, third party, whatever. And I still think that works to my eye. I think he slots in very nicely. Final comparison today then is with Badcube Brawny again in his vehicle mode, and wow, very different, very, very different. And again, I remember when Badcube came in for, I don't know about a bit of flack, but certainly a few raised eyebrows about the style of their choice of vehicle mode, because they really went for the kind of proper real-world Land Rover look. And a lot of people weren't so keen, and some people liked it, and it was definitely an interpretation, let's put it that way. And for better or for worse, that's how it looks. It's this one, obviously, in case you've not been keeping up. But very different styles, both of these. It's actually interesting to see that Hunk obviously does resemble the show a lot closer, and the original toy, although still it is a departure. But yeah, very different interpretations on the same thing. So I think that's it's quite interesting. And again, if we have both toys there with the animation model in the middle, you can kind of see how they all shape up there. You've got, in this case, FansToys on the right and Badcube on the left. And all very different, but it depends which one floats your boat more. I will say, actually, I still find the Badcube product quite fun to transform, and everything clicks together really nicely. It's a well-made toy. So if indeed that's the option that you like the look of better, then it's a good option. It's a really good option. As far as Hunk goes, though, I feel like, FansToys have done a really, really good job with this guy. It was one I was looking forward to for ages, because as much as I do like the Badcube toy, I always felt like actually, someone could deliver something that was maybe just that smidge closer to the animation model, and in that regard, I feel like they've done that. It's not 100%, but it is a good stab. I really like the vehicle mode. I do really like the transformation. The bot mode has some compromises. It's not the most articulated. There are a couple of grumbles, but overall, it's definitely a toot. So that's FansToys Hunk, a name well deserved. Now I'll put a link to TF Source's site in the video description, and I'll be able to get a full photo review up on their blog soon. Otherwise, that's it from me, so don't forget to drop me a like if you enjoyed today's video, and have a great rest of your day. TTFN.